a couple of you talked before with me at lunch. You said this in different ways, but you talked about sales, and you said, in some ways this is a bit selling your ideas. Like BO is selling your ideas. Benefit is a word that salespeople use. And the people who said this to me, some people thought that was a good thing, and some people said, I don't really like sales. And I said, well, I don't really like sales either particularly, because selling sounds like it's something you do to someone. You sell stuff at them. But what I love is jointly happy things that make jointly everyone happy. Yeah? Well, that's what this is. So with Maya, I want her to go to bed. She wants a favourite story upstairs. So we're jointly happy. And the way I always think about sales, if you think of it in the right way, whether you like the word sales or not, if you don't, think of the word persuade, think of the word influence, just think of the word jointly happy, lovely things. Yeah? Or if you want an analogy, think of a beach ball. Imagine this massive beach ball levitating between us. So beach balls have 6 coloured segments on? Yep. So there's this beach ball floating here. The only thing, I can only see the 3 colours on my side, so I think this ball is red, white and blue, because they're my colours. You guys think it's yellow, green and orange because they're the 3 you can see. You guys think it's red, white and orange because that's where you're looking. You guys think... So what happens? It's the same ball, but it looks different colours depending where you're looking at it. Well, when we communicate, it's the same points, but different people think different things about it. I want her in bed, and she wants a favourite story. Yeah? Going back to this example of John. Remember John's amazing email? Yeah? Everyone, I hate you. Basically paraphrase it. Do you remember what the email title was? Figures. Yeah, well, because your memory is amazing. Yeah, figures. One thing I didn't say is John worked for a bank. Every single email that's ever sent is about figures. Like you do something called, I don't know, health or something. It's just figures. So I said to him, beach ball, I know you want the figures, but from their side of the beach ball, what's the benefit to them of the figures? And he goes, well, I'll know the figures. Brilliant, John. I don't think this is home thinking, brilliant, John knows the figures. So what I want to do is I'm going to carry on saying, why is that good? Why is that good? Why is that good? And what I'm trying to think is, why is that good for... So, figures. Why is that good? Because I'll know the figures. All right, well, why is that good? Well, I'll put the figures in the system. Yeah, well, why is that good? Well, if you put the figures in the system, then it churns out the commission payments. So we resent the email with this title, and it had an instant hit rate response. See if you can tell why. The new title was called, Making Sure You Get Paid This Month. Yep, your titles are your fault. Yep, your opening line is your fault. So with benefits, one way to get benefits for the BO is you just think, why is that good? Why is that good? So I want Maya to go to bed. Why is that good? Well, she'll get to read a book. All right, cool, that's easy. Right, I want Jack, 15, to tidy his bedroom. Why is that good? Well, it isn't. All right, why is that good? Why is that good? Why is that good? Well, he loves his granny. His granny's blind. She doesn't want crap all over the floor. All right, cool. So we talked about it a bit like this. So I said to him, so that's how it came, like Granny's coming at the weekend, da-da-da. So what you think is, why is that good? Why is that good? Why is that good? If you like simple ways to remember things, you know when people talk about the last rites, R-I-T-E-S, I tend to find there are 5 different types of benefits, and they begin in R-I-T-E-S. So if you think, this is all well and good, Andy, but I'm not sure I'd be able to think of the B of B-O, then rights is a good idea. So one benefit could be the R stands for risk. So maybe you may say to people, we need to take the risk off the table here. We need to reduce our risk with this. That could be a benefit. We need to reduce our risk. So we've got a couple of options as to what we can do. The I stands for income. Sometimes you might be increasing someone's income. Works very well with teenagers. Do you want your pocket money? That's what John did, making sure you get paid this month, he said, with income. T stands for time. I take it you're all kind of busy, yeah? So if I could give you anything that'll free up a bit of time, that's quite cool. So sometimes when I introduce topics, I say, right, you'll like this one, it'll save you a couple of hours a week, and people go, brilliant! Because everyone wants a couple of hours a week. And the E stands for emotion. Now, benefits can be emotional as well. So you know when you do a presentation, you can feel a bit nervous? Well, here's a technique to get rid of all your nerves. People go, what is it? Or emotion can be, you know, sometimes you go to work and you think, oh, I'll be all right today. Imagine going to work and you think, God, today's going to be great. Well, this is how you can do that. So all you do is emotions can be good or bad things. So, you know, you can use emotions. And finally, the S stands for spend. So this is going to save us some money, going to reduce our costs. So I'm going to go through these again. And this, you don't need this list. It's never going to be asked of you. But it's just if you're thinking, what are the benefits to the other person? What's their side of the beach ball? It might be taking risk from, might be good for their income, might be good for saving time, might make them feel better in some way or take away some worries they have, or it might help them with budgets or spend and stuff like that. So is that useful, yeah? I find that quite helpful, that, because if you're just thinking, so why is that good? Why is that good? So Francesca, the lady who was doing this thing about global reputation management, I was saying, why is that good for them? And well, you know, they manage reputation globally. And so, well, that's just paraphrasing the phrase. Why is that good? Why is that good? And we went through, right, does it reduce risk? And she goes, not really. Does it increase income? Yeah, that's not why we do it, really. It's longer term than that. Does it save people time? Not really. It takes them time. What about the emotions? And she went, yeah, that's it, actually. It makes people feel proud of working here. So she had a subtitle which said, helping everyone feel proud of working here. Okay? Now, the really smart people will remember I said before that there are 3 types of influencing technique. The first one is using a bit of BO. Use a bit of BO. And you can either say, when shall we go to bed? Now or in 5 minutes? Or you could just say, when shall we go to bed? Don't say, shall we go to bed or not? If you're in the middle of meeting someone and want to see them again, don't say, shall we meet again? Say, when shall we meet again? This week or next week if you want, but always say, when shall we meet again? How shall we meet again? The second one, and this sounds really strange, is to go for a no. And I say, well, how does that persuade anyone to do anything? There are some people who are going to say no to you, either because they think no, or because they can't be bothered thinking, so they're just going to say no. So what you do, now this is, as we say in Liverpool, dead clever. You say a phrase which has a negative word in it. So if somebody says no to the negative, what's a double negative? A positive, bing, bang, a boom. So you say to someone something like, is there any reason you won't be able to sign that form today? Any reason you can't get that back to me today? Any reason we shouldn't progress this? Can't, wouldn't, shouldn't, can't, anything negative? Any reason that you can't get this back today? If they say, nope, that means there's no reason they can't. What does that mean? They can. Oh, did you get that form I sent through to you this morning? Yeah, I did. Oh, that's cool. Is there any reason that you won't be able to get it back to me? No, that's fine. All right, cool. Thanks, bye. If you say, is there any reason we can't get it back? You can't get it back to me. If they say yes, remember my 3 words. Every time someone says something I don't want, my 3 words always are, glad I asked. Yeah? So if I say to somebody, might be able to get that form back, and they go, any reason you can't get the form back? And they go, yeah, I'm glad I asked. What's that? Well, my diary's back to back today. And go, okay, well, these things happen. When do you think you might be able to get it back? Any reason we can't progress with this? Yeah, I'm glad I asked. What's that? We haven't got the budget. Okay, I understand, but you've said this is important. Do you think there might be somewhere else we can get some budget from? I mean, what do we do? Any reason we shouldn't progress this? Yeah, I'm not really sure the team are that interested in it, really. Okay, that's a shame, because I think both me and you are. So how do you think we can get their side of the beach ball buzzing? Now, for some reason, I've done quite a lot of work with lawyers over the years, I don't quite know why, and they really like this one. They don't like BO. I think they think they're going to get sued if they offer options. Yeah? But lawyers feel very comfortable, don't know why, we're saying, is there any reason that we can't do this? If somebody says no, you go, well, I'm glad I asked, let's get going. If they say yes, I'm glad I asked, what is it? One of my favourite questions when I'm talking to a group of people is, anyone got any concerns about this? Concerns a negative word, yeah? Got any concerns about this? If they go, no, ha, I'm glad I asked, let's crack on. Yes, I have. I'm glad I asked, what are they? Golden rule of being a doctor, first do no harm. Does it do any harm to say to somebody, is there anything you're concerned about? Not really, because they were concerned anyway, you just didn't know it. I was talking to this guy who works in sales a couple of weeks ago, and he said, I was dreading going into the meeting because I was dreading them coming up with price because we're way more expensive than the competition, and it's such a relief because price wasn't mentioned. And I thought, the odds of you winning this business are nil, because they were concerned about price and you avoided it. That's not good salesmanship. That's not a nice, lovely, happy thing that everyone's happy with. That avoids the thing they don't like. A really good question to ask, is there anything you're concerned about? Yeah, price. Okay, let's have a chat about that. Anything you're concerned about? Not really. Well, I wondered if price might be an issue. Well, yeah, now you say it. I'm going to show you the other technique, and then what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to think of something that you want to persuade someone to do. It could be at home, could be at work, could be your boss, could be someone in your team, could be somebody you love, somebody you hate. Don't mind, so I want you to think of something you want someone to do. A couple of examples people said before. There's someone who attends my meetings who always interrupts all the way through. So we want to persuade them to shut up. Yeah? Someone else has said, there's another meeting I go to, it's somebody else's meeting, and they just think it's a podium for them to stand and talk for 60 minutes at us. So we want to persuade them to shut up. Okay, so I'm going to give you the other technique, and then I'm going to ask you to think of a real challenging situation you have. It's going to happen. And I want you to script how you're going to deal with it. All right, script how you're going to deal with it. The final technique, so one of them is BO, where you go for a yes. So, time for your favourite story upstairs. Do you want to go an hour in 5 minutes? Boss, I need to do this to save us a bit of time. If you want now, shall I come back in 20 minutes? Or you can do the no one. Any reason we can't do this? The final one is you ask someone for their advice. People are extremely committed to ideas that they've come up with. And they're not very committed to ideas that you've come up with. So if you say to your team, I've just been on a course, and I realise our update meetings aren't very good, so I advise we make these 6 changes. All right? That might land, it might not. But if you say, I've just been on a course, and I think we can all get more out of our update meetings than we are doing, I'd love your advice. Can I ask you to think about one change we could make, and I'll tell you a couple I've thought of, and then we can decide what we all want to go with. Can you see that's much more likely to work because you're empowering them? So all advice is this. You say, let's say you're meeting with someone and you want to meet with them again or follow up. You could say, so how would you advise we take things forward? What would you advise are the next steps? When would you advise we try to get this signed off by? We've got an issue with budget. How would you advise we overcome that? One of my things I hate doing is writing stuff. I just hate it. It's boring. Nobody wants to read it, really. And people often say, Andy, write us a proposal, give a business case, why we should hire you and all that stuff. I would say, cool, yeah, really happy to do that, even though I'm not. And I say, can I ask your advice though before I put pen to paper? What do you think they say? Yeah, they say, yeah, because as much as anything, they're nosy, they want to know what advice is. So I say this, I don't want to bore you with irrelevant information, so what would you advise I write in there? What are they going to say? They can't say, no, be irrelevant. You go, well, you know, just put what you're going to do and what's it going to cost, and say, okay, I can do that. Do you mind if I also put the afters in as well to make sure we're clear what we're trying to achieve? And they go, yeah, that's fine. So if I start with the afters, then I talk about deliverables, then put a price, is that enough? Anything missing? Yes. I'm glad I asked. What is it? No. I'm glad I asked. So that question, don't want to bore you with irrelevant stuff, what would you advise goes in there, is extremely useful. The average length of my proposals and business cases is about a page. My average success rate is 94%. And if you talk to anyone in the sales world at all, that's just ridiculously high, and I'm just gutted about the other 6. Because in effect, I've already agreed that we're going to work together verbally. I've agreed what's going to go in the proposal verbally. I've agreed when I'm going to send it verbally. And I've agreed when we're going to follow up verbally. I don't know how it goes wrong. So if ever your boss says to you, please can you create a communication for me about X? You say, yes, I'd love to. I don't want to set off in the wrong direction. Can I ask some questions? Yeah, sure. What would you advise the structure is? Let's at least agree the headings. Okay, there we go. So, can you all think of something you desperately want to persuade somebody to do? A child to tidy their bedroom, someone to behave in a different way, someone to stop being such an idiot in meetings, someone to be more noisy in meetings, somebody to, I don't know, think of something, make it very specific. So don't just say, I'd like my team to be better. You know, things like, I wish John had shut up at the 10 o'clock meeting on Tuesday. You know, really specific. Think of a specific thing you want. And then we're back in groups of 2 or 3, not 4. And I want you to help each other script how you're going to influence someone to do what you want. And use one of these 3. So either use BO, or use the any reason we can't, or say, how would you advise we overcome this? If you can just crack this, it's probably the most life-changing thing I could teach you, because if you can get everyone to do what you want in a way they're happy with, so it's a happy, lovely beach ball for everyone. Salespeople call that selling. Normal people just call it a happy, lovely thing for everyone. 5 minutes. Success with this is you all have a word-for-word script you're going to say to deal with your thing. I'm going to walk around. If you've got any questions, give me a shout. So a quick question for you. Obviously, we'll keep exploring this as the afternoon goes on. Quick question for you. Number 1, did you find that really easy or a bit tricky? It's hard, isn't it? Yeah? Tricky. I mean, some people are going, sorry. That's fine. But many people say it's hard. It is hard. What do you think about this? I think this is logically correct. Do you agree with me or not? If it's quite hard to think about when you've got your mates alongside you and they're not there looking at you, if it's hard now to come up with the right words, it's really hard when it matters. Is that fair? Virtually impossible. But when we communicate, as we said before, very rarely do people spend extra time practicing the extra important stuff. Yeah? So, as I've gone round, people are asking loads of really, really, really good questions. So someone said, what happens if I ask someone's advice and their advice is rubbish? It's a great question. Yeah? So I said to one of my kids a while ago, like, can I ask your advice? I think your room should be tidier, but it's your bedroom. I wonder if we could find a happy common ground. And he said, well, my advice is this, Dad, you'll just have to get used to it. So now, I learned a lot from that. So the next time I said, 2 or 3 weeks later, I've been thinking about some sort of happy ground about your bedroom. Obviously, it's not fair for me to insist on you doing this, and it's not fair for you to insist on me having to get used to it. So I wonder if we could find another. And so he couldn't say, well, you have to get used to it because I've got rid of it. So if you think someone's going to say X, if you ask their advice, then say, I wonder if I could have your advice. I mean, I've been thinking about this. Obviously, X isn't going to work because of da-da-da-da-da. But I wonder what else we could do instead. So you stop them saying, going on the wrong path. Another thing which we talked to, I think, on 3 different tables here, if you get a situation which is extremely hard to deal with, a very simple way to work it out is to think in 3s. So with apologies to the tables I've explained this to, let me just explain this to all of you. As human beings, we're wired to think in 2s, like left, right, black, white, fight, flight. So you go home and your loved one says, what should we do this evening? And you say, well, we could go for a walk or we could go to a restaurant. 2 choices. You don't say, or the gym, or feed the ducks, or whatever you do in your spare time. Sorry, I got kids. If you're in the middle of a meeting and someone's being, shall we say, a little bit annoying, your brain will automatically think of 2 things. Either I shout them down, don't want to do that, or I let them talk, don't want to do that, and there's nothing I can do. So you sit there, rabbit in headlights, because you thought there was only 2 solutions. But if you can train your brain to start thinking in threes, obviously you're being 50% more creative than you've ever been in your life. So have a look at the table you're sitting at. Actually look at the table. I want you to think how you would, don't say it out loud, just think how you describe it. Right, stop. Most of you will have thought of a couple of words. Maybe round, maybe blue. Yeah? Did it stop there? You didn't say this tall, you didn't say smooth, you didn't say odorless. Whatever, I don't know. So we're just not very good at thinking in more than two. So imagine you're in a meeting with somebody and it's really kicking off. And you think, one thing I could do is I could thump them. Another thing I do is I could just watch them kick off. Another thing I do is say, hold on, let me get a piece of paper and a pen. I need to write this down, it's important. That tends to shut people up. Yeah? Another one is you say, sorry, I didn't get that. Can you just say that again? And often when people have blurted it out, they just blurted it and it's come out, the balloon's burst, they don't really need to say it again. My mum told me this. She used to work at Samaritans, and she said people would often ring, like, she called it the thigh rubbing calls. At 3 in the morning, people would ring and say, what are you wearing? And stuff like this. And Mum thought, oh. And she said whenever someone said that, she always said, oh, sorry, the line just crackled. What did you say? And then they go, oh, nothing, and put the phone down. Because it took so much guts to say the first one. Brilliant. Yeah, another one is, sorry, let me just stop you there. This sounds like really important. I'm going to escalate this to the boss. What did you say again? Yeah, that's really good. Another one could be you could say, OK, so what would a good solution be? That's always good, because quite often people are moaning. They're not looking for a solution, they're moaning. So he said, what would a good solution be? Well, there isn't one. No, well, that's a shame, isn't it? Let's take it offline. What's offline mean in normal language? Outside. Yeah, shut up, outside. Yeah, offline is a polite way of saying, let it go now. Yeah, shut up. Or you could say, sounds like it's kicking off a bit here. I think we should go and have a 5-minute break and then come back. Or let me go and get a drink and then we'll start again. I'd say, well, let's reconvene the meeting in my house or your house or in Starbucks or in Costa. And this thing, which looked like it was just totally insurmountable, we've now got 10 different things we could do. It's not a problem at all. Yep, so some of you have been saying to me, I get all this stuff about weekly update meetings, Andy, but we have been having them every week for like 29 million years. It's going to cause a problem if I go on a course and we stop. Yep, and what's happened is basically you've thought of 2 options. Number 1, keep the update meeting for the rest of time and don't change anything. Number 2, stop them dead forever. Right, well, there's a touch of a chance there may be a third option. Yeah? So as you're doing all this, if you've come up with a script you're happy with, happy days, crack on, try it. If you haven't, try and write 3 scripts and then choose the best one. So I had a really interesting one before. One of the tales was saying that in a meeting there's a couple of people who like to, should we say, talk a lot. So we talked about things, and I came up with a couple of solutions, which I thought was frankly brilliant, but looking at the table, I could tell they thought these are rubbish. And then I came up with a third option, which is, well, why don't you put everyone in pairs and ask them to discuss the topic, and then you want one top idea from each pair. You go, well, that's good, isn't it? Because the quiet people will actually speak for once, because they've got a mate to talk to, and the gobby people can't hog the whole meeting because they've only got one person to speak to. You're welcome. Does this make sense? Are you happy with this? Yep. Someone made a good point before. He said that sometimes people don't like the word selling. All right, Andy, you can use the word persuade or influence or a happy future, happy, lovely place. But the fact is, I think selling can be a bit manipulatory. Yeah, and there are some salespeople who are a bit manipulatory. Selling isn't manipulating if your intention is for a jointly happy, jointly lovely thing. If you're trying to get someone to do something they don't want to, which is not in their interest and is horrible in every way, and you're using clever, like, semantics to make that happen, that's not very nice. Yeah? But if you think about what we're saying here, the BO, Maya gets to get her favourite story. She even gets to choose which staircase to go up. That's ace to her. The fact I get what I want as well, that's all right. If you say to someone, is there any reason we can't progress this? If they say no, that's not manipulatory. If they say yes and you say, I'm glad I asked, that's not manipulatory. If you ask someone's advice and say, how would you advise we go about this, that's not manipulatory. We're asking for their advice. So with these, you may love all three of these, or you may just look at them and think, to be honest, that one feels most like me. But if you don't do any of these, you'll do one of two things. Either you won't ask at all, or you'll ask a yes-no question. Remind me, what's the problem with a yes-no question? Say no. No, I could say no, yeah. Now, at the risk of being all Forrest Gump on you, I don't really know anything else about that. You always want to finish with the resounding bang, don't you, with these sort of things? Okay, so have a look at the script you've written and ask yourself the doctor's rule, first do no harm. If you said that word for word, will it make things worse? Because if it won't make things worse, you might as well give it a go. Right, ace. Wonder how long we could keep this silence going for. It's really good, isn't it? Okay, cool. I don't mean to burst anyone's bubble, but all we have done for about the last hour is create a really compelling last sentence. Now, if you have a look at what you've come up with, that might be the only sentence you need, but you also might need to say some other stuff at the beginning as well. So if you like, we have now created the end of your communication. If what you've said is fine, you've actually created the whole thing. But you start with the end, and then we work back. The second thing to prepare, if you need any other words, we're now going to do those. If you don't, say what you've written. That's fine. The other thing to do is have a start. Yeah, so to introduce it. So if you feel you need to introduce this thing, you're going to start it by talking about the afters to them. So if you haven't already got an engaging start, you might say something like, I want to make sure you get paid this month. I want to make sure we take all this stress off our desk. So if you were doing an email, John's email now, by the way, his title is making sure you get paid this month, and his email says, please can you hit reply and give me your figures, and then I'll put them in the system. What's happened to the length of his email? What else is he going to say? Nothing to say. If you're doing a meeting, your start will be the opening serve, so you might say something along the lines of, right, let's see if we can get a few things off our desk. Right, you know we've got an hour for this call, I think we do it in 15 minutes. Whatever it might be. You've done your top and tail. The content is now not very long. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1, Andy, I don't really understand this at all, or 10, yeah, I've got it. How are we doing? Did you get it? If I explain, it's okay? Yeah? On a scale of 1 to 10, 1, this is going to do cataclysmic harm and ruin my life, everyone's life around me, maybe jail, maybe death. Yeah? And 10, it's not going to do any harm at all. All right? So what I'm hearing is, you get it, it's not going to do any harm. Now, is it definitely going to work? Well, nothing definitely works. Okay? Nothing definitely works. But we've got a really good chance of being more successful if it does. So one quick green hands moment, I think. So let me just stop for a minute. I want you to have a look back over your notes. Maybe put more circles and asterisks around actions, things you can do. Yeah. If you can't think of anything more you can do, then just like doodle. I'll give you a minute. It'd be great if we could get 4 things from the day. Right, ladies and gents. It's time for a game, I think. It's time for an exciting game. It's the afternoon. We need a game. I I wanted to teach you how people's memory works, because when you're talking, you want people to remember you. You know, you want to be interesting and people remember you. And so I thought I could either run through all the research I've done on how memory works, or we could play a game. I'm going to say, and at the same time put up on the screen, so either listen if you prefer, watch if you prefer. I'm going to give you a list of words, and then afterwards I'm going to ask you 4 questions, because there are basically 4 ways people remember things. So the 4 questions are going to relate to the way people remember things. So as I put these words on the screen, or as I read them out loud, I'll do both at the same time. I want you to try and remember them all. All right, that's it. Remember them all. It's a memory test. Now, some things really important to say about this. Firstly, the words that come up towards the end are the most important. So I'm going to say, we're coming to the end now, so you know what the really important ones are. Okay? So all the words, I want you to remember them all, the particular ones at the end. Another thing is this. When I said it before about doing that talk in the States, about the, did he say he did drugs? That one. When I do this exercise, I said, right, we're doing a memory test. And this lady put her hand up and said, can we copy the words down? I said, no, it's a memory test. Which I thought was quite a good answer. But her answer was better because she said, oh, I forgot. So try and remember as many words as you can. There's about 20, 25, that sort of thing. So they're on the screen. I'm also going to read them out, and then afterwards I'm going to ask you 4 questions about them, okay? Here we go. Hen, bus, brown, hit, potato, 7, then, why, fortune, then, toe, hat, field, then, swim, the Grand Old Duke of York, never, then, by, ever. We're coming to the end now. Blunt, then, flute, high, tar, horse, and tailor. Got all them? Right, get yourself a piece of paper and a pen. Write down your answers to these questions. Question number 1. Some people remember the first things they hear. If you care, it's called early bias. Please write down the first 5 words. If you remember, don't say them out loud, just write them down. The first 5 words. Some people remember the most recent things they've heard. Please could you write down for me the last 5 words? You may remember I said, these are the important ones. So question 1, first 5, question 2, last 5. It's always good, the hysterical laughter from the audience. Question number 3, sometimes people remember things that are repeated. If you noticed a word or heard a word that came up a few times, that's the answer to question 3. Oh, someone's face is really betraying. Well, that's 1 out of 11. And question 4, sometimes people remember things that are outstanding, that jump out in some way. What was the phrase that came up? Yeah, so make a note of that. Oh, by the way, there's someone's glasses here. Someone lost some glasses? Well, I'll have these. Okay, well, they're here. If you suddenly remember that everything's more blurred than it was, your glasses are here. So, early bias, recency bias, iterative bias, and outstanding bias. These are the 4 different ways that people remember things. Right, so, the first 5 words, what were they? Hen, bus, brown, oh, this is brilliant, hit, and potato. Hen, bus, brown, hit, and potato. Someone's looking at me with a face that can only be described as utter hatred. It doesn't matter. It's a bit fun. Not for me. Question 2, the last 5 were flute, high, tar, horse, and tailor. Count up how many you got for question 1. Count up how many you got for question 2 and see which of those 2 numbers is bigger. If any of you scored more on question 2, so your score was higher for question 2 than question 1, so a bigger score, not the same, not less, but more. If question 2 was more, you did better on question 2, put your hand up nice and high for me. So that's virtually none of the room. Put your hands down. I think that's quite interesting, because there, question 2 are the things you've most recently seen. Yeah? And I told you they were most important. I even said, here they are now. When people communicate, when do they tend to summarize their main points? What can you learn from that? Do you remember the exercise I would order you to do if I was your boss? Yellow highlighter top line of each paragraph, green highlighter where your main points are. If your main points are at the bottom, people don't remember it. They don't. It's counterintuitive. You'd expect people to remember what they've just heard. They don't. Question 3, what was the repeated word? Then. Well done. Question 4, what was the phrase? Grand Old Duke of York. Well done. So people's brains work in 1, 2, 3, or 4 different ways. They either remember early stuff, or late stuff, or repeated stuff, or different stuff. Yeah, early or late, or repeated or different. So this is kind of helpful, actually, because if you were, say, doing a presentation to someone and you had like 10, 15, 20 minutes and you wanted them to remember the key point, which was, I don't know, this is going to save us 3 hours a week. If that was your key point and you wanted to say 3 hours a week, when in your presentation should you say it? Well, you want to say it in these 4 ways. Because if you say it in these 4 ways, people are going to remember it because their memories work in these 4 ways. Some people will just remember the first stuff. Some people just the end stuff. You don't know what people's memories are like, so say it in these 4 ways. So you might start by saying, okay, I've got some good news. We're going to say 3 hours a week here. Then you start repeating it. Let's have a look where these 3 hours a week saving is going to come from. Can you see this is 3 hours a week? 3 hours a week? And then you make it outstanding by saying, let me tell you a story about someone else who say 3 hours a week. Or what would you do if you had 3 hours? Let's have a chat about that. If you're struggling for something outstanding, remember the poem, facts tell, stories sell. Facts tell, stories sell. 3 hours a week is a fact. Telling someone a story about what you can do in 3 hours, well, there you go. Yes, madam.
I just wanted to ask, is your memory affected by the way you're trying to remember what you're being told? So I started telling myself a story at the beginning about a brown hen.
Yeah, I got hit by a bus and a potato and all that stuff. Yeah, it can. Sometimes people, if you want to remember lots of things, it's important to make connections. Yeah. So, for example, if you want to remember when you go home tonight, you need to ring the off license and ring your lawyer. Then imagine a phone and imagine, you know, some wine coming out of one end of the phone and imagine a lawyer coming out the other end of the phone. And all of a sudden it's very easy to remember because you've made the connection. Yeah. So, yeah, absolutely. That's one way to remember stuff. And when you're trying to remember things, which you are in an exercise like that, because I said try and remember it, you'll do things like that. But when you go to Monday morning's update meeting, you won't. Yeah? So when you're talking to people, you start off with, this is going to save us 3 hours a week. 3 or 4 times you say 3 hours a week, 3 hours a week, 3 hours a week. Facts tell, stories sell. Say a story about how someone say 3 hours a week. And at the end you go, you see? 3 hours a week? Do you remember I did a fictional slide at the beginning of the presentation? It said about us, it was blue and horrible, and I said I was founded in, what was the year I said I was founded in? 1922. Now, I think that's quite interesting, because I told you that at about 10:15 this morning. It's fictional, it's not even true. It's bogus, it's made up. It couldn't be less relevant. I mean, I can't think of a way to make it less relevant. It's a made-up company and a made-up thing, and it's not even relevant. It's just utterly irrelevant. But you remember it. Why? Because I said it at the beginning of the day. Yeah? Do you remember this first serve thing? You've got to start your meetings well. You've got to start your presentations well. If you're delivering agenda item 3, your first sentence has got to be good. It's almost like sometimes people say, I'm not too worried about first impressions. And you say, no, you are absolutely, definitely causing a first impression. So it might as well be a good one. You know, you can't avoid causing a first impression because you couldn't be bothered preparing. You will be causing one, so it might as well be ace. So if I was doing a presentation to a group of people and I wanted them to maybe send me the figures for the month, and doing that was going to save them 3 hours a week, this is what I would do. I would say, let's save 3 hours a week. Here's how we'll save 3 hours a week. 3 hours a week would be nice, wouldn't it? Here's a story about 3 hours a week. You see? 3 hours a week. So to get you 3 hours a week, all I need is your figures. What's the best way you can get me the figures? Right, cool. We've got 2 more things to do. 3 more things to do today. One of them is my favourite slide title, which is How to Be Interesting. You might be thinking, yeah, you could do with learning that, Andy. The next slide title is How to Remove Things That You Dread. You know, so some of you are saying, this is all well and good, Andy, but I've got this guy called Colin, and Colin's always like this, and I'm hearing all this, but bloody Colin. Yeah? So we need to be able to deal with Colin. A few ways we could do that. So 3 things to do. One of them is be interesting. One of them is remove the stuff you're dreading. What happens if this happens? And the third one is change habits. Yeah? That's all we have to do. So I don't really want to teach you much more apart from be interesting, because who wouldn't want to be interesting? Secondly, remove stuff that you dread in hearing, because who wouldn't want that? And then finally, how to change habits. I want you to get the best out of the final time we have together. There's a benefit. They're the 3 things we're doing next. Which would you like to do next? Be interesting, remove the dreadful stuff, or change habits? Where should we go next? Change habits is probably the thing I'm hearing most. Is that okay if we do change habits? Say again? Be interesting. Oh, brilliant. It's kicking off. Right, I'll tell you what. I don't know if this is a phrase, but it should be. We're going to have a vote. So I want you to have a vote and give a toss. All right? So I'm going to ask you to put your hand up for one of these 3, and we'll go with which seems to be best. So if you want to be interesting, that's what you want to do next. Put your hand up nice and high. That's quite likely. Okay, put your hands up if you want to remove stuff that you dread. Yes, quite a few, but not as many. And finally, the habit change. Okay, there you go. That's the order. Right, we're being interesting first. So I spent ages thinking what slide title to use. So I called it, not that, because I've gone to the wrong page. How to inspire people to perform better. But what I really mean is how to be interesting. It's actually easier to be interesting and inspiring than you think. The reason that people find it hard is because they don't think about it very much. So do this as a table. I want you to be loud. I want you to be gobby. I want you to be shouting at each other. And I want you to do a 2-column table if you're writing stuff down. If you just want to talk about it, that's fine. But I want you as a table to come up with at least 10, if you can, 15 answers to this question. All right? And the question is this. When you're on the receiving end of communication, what do you find interesting or inspiring? So what do you like? So if you're doing a 2-column table, in the left-hand column, you're going to head it up with I like. So I want you to write down all the things that you like or you find interesting, or you find inspiring. So for example, I like it when it's interactive. I don't like watching someone talk at me. I like hearing success stories. I love things like that. So I would write on the left-hand side, interactivity, success stories. So write down what you love being on the receiving end of. Do it as a table, noisy as you can. You've got 2 minutes, go. Okay, ladies and gents, I'm going to stop that there. But we're going to quickly ping around the room and we're going to see if we can extend your list. I'd like to get 15 on everyone's piece of paper. So if you've not got 15 yet, don't worry. We're just going to go round and see if we got one right. So this table, tell me anything you wrote, anything. Stories. I've got stories, very good. Write stories if you didn't get it, you guys.
Honesty. We want to tell you them all.
Okay, well you can't tell us them all because they'll be gutted. Gutted. Right, we've gone for honesty. Sorry, I'll come back in a minute. Yeah, good. You guys.
Purpose.
Yeah, good. There's a clear purpose. What about you guys? Interaction. Oh, this is cool. Yes.
Tips.
Tips. Good top tips you can use straight away.
Truth.
Truth. Yes. Go.
Humour.
Humour. Always good. Spontaneous. And do you know what? Sometimes it's quite useful if you practice your spontaneity. It's good. I remember reading a quote about Winston Churchill. Someone said, "Where's Winston?" They said, "He's in the cloakroom preparing his ad hoc remarks." Thought really good. Good. Say again.
Emergence.
Emergence. What do you mean by that, sorry?
Something emerges from the group that is new and innovative.
Yeah, cool. Something emergence. Cool word. Something emerges from the group that's new and innovative. You guys.
Credible.
Credible. Yes, you two.
No jargon.
No jargon. Remember my IIP thing? We still don't know what that is. What about you three?
Enthusiastic.
Enthusiastic?
It finishes early.
It finishes early. Can anyone think of a time when you might like this to happen? Yeah, do you know what? Finishes early is a belter. Trust me, we're out of here on time. I'm hearing what you're saying. You guys. Passion, yes.
Relevant for me.
Yes, it's relevant for me, and I understand immediately it's relevant for me. I don't want to suddenly think after 40 minutes, oh yeah, like second one, this sounds good. You guys. Say again?
Pace.
Yes, good pace about it.
Clarity and brevity.
Clarity, brevity,
Good lunch.
good lunch.
Surprise.
Yeah, surprise, unexpectedness, good.
Time to talk.
Time to talk and interact with your neighbours. Finally, you guys.
Not afraid of silence.
Not afraid of silence, yes. Loving all that. Some great points there. What else have I heard people say about things like this? Sometimes what people do in here is they think of, instead of things they like, they also think of things they hate and write the opposite. Yeah? So, for example, I would write there, I hate beyond hate extremely wordy slides. Yeah? So on the left-hand side, I would write sparse slides. Yeah? When I'm reading, I hate beyond hate long paragraphs. Okay? It might be a lovely, logical, flowing thing to you, but you're not reading it. I am. And I want it to be short. If you care, research shows, Colin Wilden's research in Australia a few years ago found that paragraph length should be 4 lines maximum. Yeah, so on the left-hand side, I would write short paragraphs. Why? Because what happened was he got people to read different paragraph lengths and then tested what they'd remembered, and you found people's retention basically dropped off a cliff if it was longer than 4 lines long. A couple of people thinking, there we go, there's an action for me. Yeah. Pardon? No, it's not recent research. I haven't found anything recent which I think is more compelling. I mean, if anything, when he did it, 4 lines was portrait A4. So 4 lines portrait A4, if you have an iPhone, is probably about 900 lines or something because it's so narrow. Yeah. So if anything, I think that's on the optimistic side, 4 lines, because he did it before we see what we see now. I mean, generally, I tend to start a new paragraph pretty much every sentence, kind of. Not really, not bad. No one has ever said to me, your paragraphs are beautifully short. But what happens is they read my stuff dead fast and just do what I want, so that's fine. Yep. Okay, cool. Visuals, people like. They like pictures. They like clarity on what's happening next, so timelines, people like things like that. Variety, all this sort of stuff. Now, if I was to ask that question I've just asked you, what do you like, to ask pretty much any audience in any room, in any organisation, in any country, of any world, in any universe, do you think their answers are wildly different than what you've come up with? No, of course not. Everybody likes interactivity and funny things and quick things and short things and relevant things. Everybody finds stuff like that interesting. Everybody finds stuff like that inspiring. So listen to the logic here, ladies and gents. Everybody you speak to likes stuff like that. So if you want to communicate in ways that people like, guess what? Do stuff like that. Have a look down the left-hand side and ask yourself, that list of things you've written, does that describe my communication style? If you look down the left-hand side and think, do you know, I don't think I've ever done any of those. All you need to do to be more interesting than you currently are is do more of them than you currently do. In a second, I'm going to ask you to do the right-hand side, but before that, I'm going to introduce you to a new word, which I think I might have made up, and it's the word unlazy. So what I want you to do is, now you've got on the left-hand side, people love, for example, they love interactivity. So on the right-hand side, I'm going to start thinking, what should I do? What actions can I take to make me more like what I've said on the left? Now, this is where unlazy comes in. Because a lazy person on the left-hand side would say, people like interactivity, so I'm going to be interactive. That's lazy. An unlazy person would think, I'm going to prepare good questions to ask. I'm going to put people in pairs so they might have 4 or 5 bullet points on the right side. Put people in pairs, prepare questions, ask somebody else to run the agenda, ask somebody else to contribute. Yeah? We then have a look at things like left-hand side. People like it to be relevant. So don't just be lazy and put be relevant. What's the best way to make sure you're relevant and focus on the things that people are interested in? Ask them what they're interested in. Good. And word for word, what's a good question to ask if you want to find what people are most interested in? What are you most interested in? If someone wants you to prepare a communication for him, say, all right, what do you want me to include? What do you not want me to include? That's a pretty good way to be relevant. And also it builds your confidence because you're not dreading them not caring. So left-hand side, you've got all this stuff. Right-hand side, I want you to write 1, 2, 3 things you can do to be more like what you've said on the left. If you can't be bothered doing it for all of them, do it for 4 or 5 of them, the ones that make a really big difference. It's cool this. You're about to be more interesting than ever before in your life. Boom. 5 minutes, have fun.